the value of stress. Now, as you can see, I have one of my little stress relievers right here, and I'm out in the other stress reliever, in the bigger stress reliever. Now, that is not to say that stress is always a bad thing. Stress, like I've said with so many of these other things, it can be super, super beneficial, really, really valuable to our lives. And it can be massively detrimental. And it all comes down to, maybe you guessed it, balance and timing, i.e. how much and for how long. This is what it comes down to. So we've got acute stress, the idea that zebras don't get ulcers. There's this book written years ago. It's really medical, it's really hard reading. But basically the gist of it is this. They get chased, they run their arse off. All of that stress energy gets transformed into kinetic energy, which gets dispersed, and then they're sound as a pound. And then they forget, yesterday was about forgetting, they forget about the lion that was just trying to chase them, and then they just carry on munching their food, and they're not stressed about it. There's no, depression or reminiscence about the past. And this is the distinction then I was trying to make. Okay, so what's the difference between stress and anxiety, especially those two things? But then sort of stress and depression at the same time. So anxiety, this is what I've come to the sort of thinking of. Anxiety is about the future, purely about the future. It's things that we have no idea about yet. It's all about the unknowns and the kind of stresses, if you like, but the anxiety of what's coming up. Depression is kind of, it is present, it is, but it's also much more about past. This has happened, I'm reminiscing, and I'm in these thought patterns, in these habits, these physical patterns as well as thought patterns. And stress, actually, I genuinely believe, and it's stuff I'm working through. Like I said, all these videos, they're not about, I know all the shit, listen to me, I'm here to tell you what's up, you should learn some things. Actually, it's more about me learning the things and me thinking about these things. So the idea of, actually, I believe stress can get us out of depression. I need to workshop that a little bit. But the idea being that potentially, when we're depressed, things might actually be a little bit too easy. And we need a challenge. We need a stressor of some kind. Now, obviously not one that's going to add to the issue. Obviously not one that's going to be detrimental, but a healthy one. One that's going to actually be used as a catalyst for change. Yeah, the value of change coming up. So it is all about balance, and stress, let's just call stress in the here and the now, the stress in the present moment. So we can have physical stress and mental stress. Like I said, they can be acute, which can often be very healthy, like the whole zebras don't get ulcers. They're running. They have this stress, this reason, value of reasons coming up, this reason to just fucking give it all that they got. And it sends the blood around the system, and it clears out the toxins, and the muscles are working, and everything's efforting. That's what life wants. Life wants effort. Life doesn't want stagnation. Change, evolution, entropy, always going on. If you're stagnant, that's it, you're done. So life creates stress. It wants effort. It wants to see, that was a good catch, wasn't it? It wants to see what and who is putting in the effort to stay on this earth, basically. That's what I think. So I believe acute stress can be, with the right balance, obviously, and that's going to be different for different people, can be a really beneficial thing for change. It's the chronic stresses. It's the little things day in, day out that stress us out. And I struggle with this massively with pain. I used to struggle with this massively, not so much now, still a little bit, but massively with just not being able to breathe. So I was obviously anxious about tomorrow. I may be more ill tomorrow, but I'm stressed right now. My body is stressed. My mind is stressed because I physically cannot breathe in and out. I cannot do what it is I feel is necessary to stay alive. So every breath would stress me out, and I'd feel these pain signals from my body all the time, stressing out in the moment, depressed about what's been, anxious about what's to come, but stressed at the time. Too much for too long, and it basically drove me to the grave. I didn't quite stay there, but that's basically where it put me. So chronic stress is not good at all, and we need to find ways to manage and mitigate. So like I said, one of the things, have a beautiful animal companion. I'm not sure how much, oh, you can just about see her there, she blends in well in the shadows. Being outdoors, yeah, touching grass as they say, but being outdoors, fresh air, nature sounds. I mean, there are a few mechanical sounds and things around, often lawnmowers around here, but I oftentimes get out into the forests in the middle of nowheres in this country just to have no kind of evidence that humans exist. It's just me and nature, that calming presence. It can help de-stress us, takes the noise of life down, takes all the chaos of life down. So being outside, being in nature, being with animals is a really, really great way to manage that chronic stress. And we pretty much all have chronic stress with some things in this day and age, and I'm sure they did as well before. I can only obviously speak to this day and age, but this idea of learning what our chronic stresses are, understanding them, and then taking action that's necessary to mitigate against the worst of it and to stop it building up and get it too much, because too much will crush you. Okay, there's a lot and there's high volumes of, and there's too much. So we want to be careful of having too much stress. So yesterday, my video was awful. I was really stressed yesterday. I was really tired. Tiredness can make us really stressed if you're, you know, I'm not saying only new parents get tired, but especially if you're a new parent with a baby, then you're often tired and as a result really stressed. All the little things. It's all about forgetting yesterday. Well, stress is a massive, massive reason for people for forgetting stuff. Oh, I was tired, I forgot this, I forgot that, stressed out, you know, and it's one of these things we need to be able to mitigate against it. So it's the making sure it's not too much for too long, balance and timing, and so long as you can breathe, the rest is easy. Bringing it back to breath, the value of breath is right up there as the most important thing in the world. Okay, because without breath you have no time, and timing is everything. So if we learn to breathe, if we get better at breathing, so one of the things that is really good for stress, to get rid of stress, to help mitigate against it, exercise. We had exercise, I think, so I don't know, video number 8 or whatever it was, but the value of exercise, it's so important to help us with stress. Now another thing I'm doing, especially what I'm trying to do out here more and more, is stretch. I'm trying to stay mobile, being flexible. Now yesterday I didn't, and I mean this metaphorically as well as actually. Yesterday I didn't feel flexible. I felt like I was running out of time, like I was falling behind. And time for me has always been, because I always thought I was dying, and it was always this, oh, he's going to die then, he's going to die then, according to doctors. So I always had this time stress, and so I get very, very, very stressed about time. And as I say, then when I'm in pain, and often the stress makes the pain worse, so there's a massive, massive emotional element to pain. So my pain was worse yesterday. So my video yesterday about forgetting was probably my worst one, and I haven't even watched it yet. I kind of want to forget that I ever did it. But this is it, stress can cause these things, and that's why I wanted to talk about stress today, why it's so important. So I've got my few notes, and it really is about resting for me most of the time, and for most of us. You know, so long as you can breathe, the rest is easy, and it's oftentimes we're simply not rested. So like I say, the whole zebra gets no ulcers. They sprint, yeah, they run away, cool, I'm away, and then they just keep munching on some grass and they rest and they chill the fuck out. But we often then we reminisce about, you know, we don't forget, we don't let it go, we dwell, yeah, and then we now the value of dwelling, yeah, coming up potentially great. We're dwelling on a problem that needs to be solved, but oftentimes we don't. We dwell on all these things we can no longer change. Can't change it. Why am I dwelling on it? It happened. It's been. It's gone. Nothing we can do now. That's that. But we dwell, and it stresses us in the moment, and it's totally pointless. A lot of these stresses we add to our own lives. If we could only be wise enough to not add them, not even put them in our way, not even allow ourselves to go to the place that is going to stress us, not even allow ourselves to message the person who's going to stress us, not even allow ourselves to open our mouth to react rather than respond in a way that's just going to make that whole situation more stressful. It's fucking difficult. Wisdom is witch. And we often learn as we grow up, but this is why opting in, like I said before, opting in for the harder experiences, understanding I am going to stress myself hard, and here's why. And they do it, things like SAS, Navy SEALs, any kind of elite military. They stress test the soldiers. And the ones that don't pass the stress test, which is about 80 to 90% in the high elite stuff, that's it, you see you later. You can't handle the mental or physical stress, or the both, because oftentimes it's a bit mental, and then you carry on, and then it gets into your body, and you're like, oh wow, my body's really hurting. And then once your mind gets stressed when your body's in a lot of pain, that's when you snap. And that's the thing. Oftentimes you can have a bit of one, but the other one's okay. So you can be mentally stressed, but it's cool. I can go out for my run. I can do my run every day. I can do my run. I can do my run. I can put that stress into these trainers and into the pavement and then out into the world again. It's cool. I have a way of mitigating against it. But if you have that mental stress, like I've had in my life, and then I physically couldn't even really move from one room to another, and then you're in physical stress and mental stress, and then that just becomes torture, and that's a really high level of stress. The beginning of stress is actually excitement. We get excited, we get switched on, our body's like, oh, something's going to happen. What's going to happen? The stress is when that excitement then potentially, like the whole zebra getting chased by a lion, becomes a detrimental thing, and it could affect you negatively. It turns from excitement to stress when that balance, and that could just be a perception thing, purely a perception thing. But once that, and most of the time it is, because we're not going to get eaten by a lion, 99.9% of the time, our stress is unfounded in a real, holy shit, I'm going to die right now way. Mine wasn't. Mine was very much a holy shit, I may well die right now way. And that's why we develop humour and things like that. You notice I laugh a lot, humour, value of humour coming up. It's very, very, very important. All of these things super valuable. But stress kind of oftentimes can run our lives. But if we opt in, like I say, for the acute stress, like the military do, we stress test ourselves. We have a narrative, value of narrative coming up. We have reasons, value of reasons coming up. We have this, I'm going to do this for this outcome. And this outcome is simply to make me a better functioning, healthier human being. Not only for myself, of course for myself, but not only for myself, but for those around me, my loved ones, my friends, my family, my community. That's why we do these things. So we can help absorb some of the stress when other people are stressing, because we've had tougher stresses. We have been tested to a higher degree in those situations. We can kind of smile, we can almost laugh, not in a mocking way, but it's cool. I got this. We can be super confident in these kind of situations. That's kind of what we're aiming for. Have I got anything? Oh, enough is enough. Yeah, balance, obviously. Yeah, enough stress is enough stress. And slow is smooth. This is one thing I say to myself all the time. Mate, today, this is all you got to do. Just this little bit here. That's cool. You can manage that, right? You can manage this today. Yeah, I can manage this today. Might not be easy. You might still struggle and you might still feel shit, but you can manage it today. So don't stress. You've got this shit. Yeah, enough is enough, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I'm constantly stressed that I'm running out of time. I'm always worried about time. And when I come to play drums and play piano, I'm always running a little bit ahead of the beat, almost all the time, a little bit ahead. I'm never really behind, I'm always ahead, I'm always rushing. So I have to remind myself, I have to coach myself. That's why I have the things written upstairs in the bathroom, reminding myself, coaching myself through every day. This is one of the other ways we can mitigate against that chronic stress, is we say, I know that this is just the state of emotion that I'm in right now. I know these things, not just from my own experience, but it's been backed up again and again and again by all these other fantastic people who've come to the same conclusion. So I have to trust. The value of trust, and we all struggle with trust nowadays. Holy shit, more than ever, the value of trust. I have to trust that if I just toe the line, if I just keep doing the things I'm doing because I know them to be right, theoretically and from my own experience, then I'll be okay. And again, that reasoning with oneself, the value of reason coming up. Reasoning with oneself can really help to de-stress, and just remembering that the better I do today, not necessarily in doing more, but the better, so the thing I may need to do really fucking well is rest. So often we forget resting is an action, and it is an action to take to mitigate against high levels of stress. I needed to do that more yesterday. I've actually, started this trench right here. You probably can't see it after the value of starting, because I want to get the studio down the bottom of the garden. So there's a space down there that I'm going to do, and there's this trench. I don't know if you can just about see it there with the dog. And I started that, and it's a lot of hard work, and it stressed my body. Now I felt cool at the time, and in the next day, yesterday I woke up and again I forget, because in the moment I feel good today, and I forget how knackered my body has been, how pushed to the brink it has been, how much residual stress it still carries in it, because the body never forgets. Your mind can forget, we can block things out of our mind, but the body keeps score. There's a book about it. I'm sure there's several YouTube videos about it, but the body really does keep score. My body's kept score, and it has harboured so much residual stress. We hold it in ourselves. We often hold it in our shoulders. I find it really tough to relax my shoulders because I find it really tough to then breathe properly. So for me, I physiologically, even if I'm pretty chill that day, all this stress is in my body, and then I stress it more, thinking it's okay on the day, forgetting how much is already there. And it's too much, and my balance is off because my timing was off. I was rushing it. I was trying to do too much too soon, so I overloaded myself in the moment, which caused too much stress. And then it can lead to more stress the next day, which leads to chronic stress. It's a real slippery slope. So the value of getting started, don't even get started. But it's really hard. It's really fucking hard to know. All of these things about life maths, it's so nuanced. The value of nuance coming up is so intricate. The value of intricacy is coming up. I've actually got to write that one down. It's really, really fucking tough. But like anything, if you want to be good at anything, you've got to work hard and you've got to be diligent. Value of diligence coming up. Value of working hard coming up as well. There are so many things, and life is the grandest thing we know. It's the toughest thing. It's the longest thing. Everything that we know is included in life. So there's so many tricky little things, and no one's ever going to get it all right. But we can certainly at least look to take away some of the downsides. So the body does keep score, and it's important that we remember that we don't feel, I know, like I say, I'm terrible for it. It's important that we remember our strengths and weaknesses moving forward. Not that we go, I'm weak, I can use this as an excuse. Just remember, yeah, my back is pretty weak still, my hips are pretty weak, my knees are pretty weak. So stressing them every single day probably isn't wise, but never stressing them because I go, well, they're weak, so I can't use them, is also really, really unwise. So it's about opting in for the acute stress with the right amount of stress that is in the right kind of time. So I've got really itchy foot. We need to blow off steam, and that's a really important thing that a lot of people forget. And then when they do blow off steam, they don't do it in the right ways. So like I say, where the body builds up stress and when the mind builds up stress, if we don't alleviate it, it will bury it somewhere, and then it'll often adopt behaviours to cope. Basically, it does you a favour in the moment, in the short term, when there's too much excess and you've got nowhere blowing off the steam. It will do things in other ways, and it will bury it deep in your mind, it will bury it deep in your body, and it will come out years later, and you may not even know it. And again, this whole thing of awareness is super, super beneficial. Can be really unhealthy, but the value of awareness, again, you realise the things that stress you, you realise the things that have stressed you, and in the ways in which you can start to unfold that. So for me, sometimes I think, oh, I need to be doing a workout, I need to be pushing my muscles. No, actually what you need to be doing today, mate, is you need to be trying to get more flexible and mobile, and you need to practice your breathing a bit and relax today, because your muscles have had enough. You know, and it's wisdom is which. This is the thing, learning how to blow off the steam. Sometimes that blowing off the steam might be going out and having a little drink and a laugh with friends and a piss around. But other times that blowing off the steam might be going for a good walk in nature. It might be having a proper conversation. It might be, there's so many ways of blowing off steam. It's what works for you. But finding a way to de-stress when things get too much is super, super valuable. And finding a way to notice before things get too much is also super, super valuable. Chronic stress will kill you, but opting in for the acute stress, knowing while you're doing it, is going to add so much value to your life. So get your asses outside, get yourself chilled out in some sunshine, and otherwise just have a bloody lovely day.